Greetings, metalheads! Like we discussed in my previous video where I analyzed Cradle of Filth's song Tearing the Veil from Grace, the underlying theme of their album Median is monsters. We have the lunatics of Torture Soul Asylum, the werewolf of Amore Morte, the madness, vampirism of Saffron's Curse, the necrophile of Lord Abortion, the horrific murder of Her Ghost in the Fog, the mythical monsters Satan and his outcast followers in Tearing the Veil from Grace. Well, in the song that we're going to take a look at today, Death Magic for Adepts, the monster is humanity itself. The song is rather atypical as it opposes the romantic view we generally find in Cradle of Filth songs, showing the beauty, the sublime in all things dark and sorrowful and evil in pure romantic fashion. But here the tone is quite changed. In spite of the title sounding supernatural, magical, the song is very nihilistic, showing a view of the world as bleak as it can be. Thus, Death Magic is more in line with existence is futile. The title of their new album says it everything, in its pessimistic, disenchanted, and disillusioned tone. I see this song more in the vein of modernism than romanticism, which presents the modern world as a sordid place, a far cry from the past. Think of something like T.S. Eliot's The Wasteland, where every little scene is an image of the decay of the modern world. Well, this is one of those songs that I didn't really appreciate until I grew older, but then I came to absolutely love. So let's listen to the song. This is Death Magic for Adepts. One thing is still idealized in this song in the very key of modernism, namely the past. The tortured and distorted artists of the past, great visionaries who were ahead of their times, are called upon to explain to us our modern reality. Our world is chaotic, mad, nonsensical, bitter things seek meaning, and are madness to behold. Life is now worse than death, a waking nightmare. An invocation of distorted artists, three painters known for their grotesque style creations, for riveting, dreamlike or nightmarish imagery. We have the Renaissance rebels Bosch and Bruegel, who made a very dissonant note compared to masters of beauty of their time like Botticelli, and are known for their wide-shot paintings with excruciating detail, depicting carnivals of the absurd with orgies and all kinds of vices and animal-headed devils gorging on humans. Does this remind you of something? One thematic difference between them is that Bosch focuses on the mythical and mystical a lot in his paintings, whereas Bruegel focuses more on the human element. Whereas Goya, a couple of centuries later in the 1800s, veers from the colorful and carnival-inspired works of Bosch and Bruegel and turns the grotesque style into something sinister and horrific. Therefore, these three artists who show the chaos, the vice and absurdity of the human condition are the perfect people to be invoked here in order to explain What the hell is going on in our day and age when the human race is turned into an inhuman wraith? What's wrong, we are explained, is the duality of this world and the hypocrisy of it. A half of us is lost in despair and misery, completely overwhelmed and out of control. The other half is the mask that we put on, a mask of order and beauty and opulence, the rich red lips, but controlled by either greed or religious belief, which is for Cradle of Filth the foremost example of hypocrisy. This line about Virgil is one of my absolute favorites of Cradle of Filth. Also in terms of its sound, for the beauty of the alliteration, even Virgil averts his eyes, and for its nihilistic nostalgia of the past. Virgilius, the ancient Roman poet, whom Dante made into an archetype of the guide, as he is the one who leads the lyrical eye of the Divine Comedy through the 9 circles of hell, through purgatory and the 9 circles of heaven, roughly corresponding to the celestial spheres of ancient and medieval astronomy. Virgil keeps his cool through the districts of hell, where various categories of sinners are tortured, up to the point where a 3-faced Satan is trapped mid-waist in ice and munching on the head of Judas, the greatest sinner of them all. But that same Virgil is forced to look away from our modern world, so chaotic and perverted it is. So this world has bled until it has become a shade of its former self. And Christian apologists, the seraphim, still bleat about the second coming of Jesus. But instead of the glorious birth in the manger, here the master is stillborn in said manger in the trough, and chimeras are born instead of miracles. So the Pentecost, the descent of the Holy Spirit upon the world, has become the Pente-Holocaust, a destruction of mankind. Christianity is seen as full of corruption and lies and manipulation risen upon people's fear of death, and it reminds us how we are rotting inside. Mankind is the court of chaos and an agent of self-destruction. And here comes one of my favorite stanzas ever. This stanza is so stunning. Firstly, it's atypical of Cradle of Filth to bring up environmentalist issues, right? But not at all out of place, given that nihilism as a philosophy has this environmentalist component, if you look especially at Scandinavian philosophers, to show that our world is imploding through the selfless and ignorant acts of mankind. In other words, human nature is so flawed that not only it is doomed to destroy itself, but it has even destroyed the planet, the very thing that sustains us, so as to blow up any chance of humanity's preservation in time. So nature screams in suffering. She is personified as a female figure raped by the callous deeds of mankind. Her robes are torn, she is stripped and ravished and only begs to die, which will leave us in nothingness and which will mean our end. This personification of an abstract concept into a female figure is encountered a lot in classical literature and also in the medieval allegorical tradition inspired from it. We can look, for instance, at Boethius, the 6th century Roman poet, in his Constellation of Philosophy, who has Lady Philosophy appeared as an abused woman with torn robe, so as to show that the rational thinking today, so the philosophy in the day of Boethius, is but a vile caricature of what it used to be. Boethius was also disenchanted with the world he was living in. And if the destruction of Earth will not kill us, the stanza concludes, then an astronomical disaster is the fate that humanity deserves. For the corruption and the evil and the ignorance of mankind, our wrongs and rights, we deserve to be killed by a greater force, the triumph of nature over man, because too long we have considered ourselves masters of the universe.
Watching down this godless man metropolis. Independence is worse than the crime. All of true life is now. Christ cannot see. Not in the wounds of evermore for his steps. Smells of regret and budget for attempts. Be prepared to fulfill prophecy. The glory has fallen for sin dynasty.
So everything we've ever built and are proud of are in fact pictures of our own corruption. Metropolises are cities of maggots because this is how people wriggle in them without a mind of their own and a purpose of their own. No religion or God can save us, neither Allah nor Christ. The only thing the adepts of religions will receive is death. So the world we built was a fool's paradise, like the land of cocaine, with cocaine being a medieval utopia, a land of plenty, as painted by Virgil the Elder himself as a show of laziness and gluttony. And this dynasty of sin will finally fall. And now onto the brilliant soliloquy that will provide the perfect ending for this song. This song has so many of my favorite lyrics ever.
Set out for this world's end. Few at the prow, most slave below, painting coal a perfect gold. But for all it's worth, the engine's slow, dead in the brine again.
This image here reminds us of a great flood narrative where the world is ending and what is left of humanity is huddled upon a ship. The ship is a microcosm, all of mankind manifesting its flaws in one small place. Sounds like a recipe for disaster. They are not really sailing, but rather floating adrift because they have no means of orientation, no compass, and no star to guide themselves. The skies are dark and covered, showing how divinity has forsaken man, or has simply never existed. So we are on our own and incapable of handling it. The few at the prow represent, of course, the leaders of the world, whereas the vast majority of people are just cogs in the machine. They stand in the shadow and do ultimately worthless things, such as painting coal to look like gold. Of course, the engines break and all of the half-assed efforts of humanity are reduced to nothing.
Cabin fever, sodomy on the bounty, pray for fallacies that hiss and foam to douse disease. A storm roars on the way, blacker than the ace of rapes, dealt out by death in dark wood glades. Our ship of fools, all boards handmade, sinks, dashed by seismic waves.
What an anti-humanistic resolution. So humanity is bit in the back by all its flaws and corruption and perversion. Because this is not the chosen people of God like in the myth of the Great Flood, but rather a godless, forsaken race, this sea voyage does not have such a happy ending as Noah's. Humanity, this ship of fools, is struck by calamity. First, it destroys itself from the inside through corruption, and then, already sick and divided, it is dashed by storms and seismic waves, the rightful destruction of mankind and the triumph of nature over man. This is an underrated song, and it's one of my favorite standalone Cradle of Filth songs because while I love the coherence of the character arc from the cruelty and the beast and the historical themes, this song is so complex in its themes and has so much depth. It is such a pertinent nihilistic commentary on the world we live in. As a teenager discovering Cradle of Filth out of Midian, I of course loved A Ghost in the Fog and things like Saffron's Curse and Amore Morte in terms of lyrics, and the epic Tearing the Veil from Grace and Torture Soul Asylum in terms of sound. So Death Magick for Adepts sort of fell through the cracks. So it wasn't until I was in my 20s that I came back to Death Magick and thought, wait, is this some of the best lyrics out of Midian? Is this one of the best Cradle of Filth's song ever? What do you guys think? So this was my analysis for today. Thank you so much for watching and I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like this video and subscribe to my channel, and stay tuned for my next analysis of metal lyrics.